This zero-star recruit went from begging colleges to look at him to NFL defenses begging him for mercy. But how did this happen? Well, here's the story of Cooper Kupp. From the moment he took his first breath, a football was in Kupp's arms. The sport was in his blood, and his family dreamt of etching their name into the NFL history books. His grandfather, Jake Kupp, was an NFL offensive lineman, and Cooper's father, Craig Kupp, was an NFL quarterback. Jake was a 9th-round pick in the 1964 draft by the Cowboys, and Craig a 5th-rounder in 1990 by the Giants. At the time, only 4 families in league history had 3 different generations selected in the draft, so the Kupps were dead set on being the 5th. Growing up in Yakima, Washington, when Cooper was only 5 or 6 years old and the other kids were watching cartoons, his dad was already putting him to receiver drills. Almost every day after work, he would have Cooper run back and forth on a 10-foot carpet in their house to catch as many touchdowns as possible. The two of them spent countless hours working on and perfecting this. Young Cooper loved every second of it, and his family's goals quickly became his own. As he got older and his body continued to develop, Kupp at Davis High School in Yakima excelled as a 2-sport varsity athlete. In addition to football, he played 3 seasons of varsity basketball, and as a senior helped his team win a state title. On the gridiron, Kupp was a 2-way player, playing both defensive back and wide receiver. But he wasn't a freak athlete, so he couldn't just rely on his natural abilities to be successful.
Undersized, skinny. Yeah, he didn't have measurables in 9th or 10th grade.
Kupp just worked harder than everyone else. All the extra time he spent in the gym and the practice field paid off his senior year, when he was a 2-way All-State selection. Kupp finished that season with 60 catches for 1,059 yards and 18 touchdowns, while setting a school record with 22 total touchdowns. But despite the accolades, he was completely slipping through the cracks when it came to college recruitment. Kupp sent highlight tapes to dozens of coaches around the country, and even had his grandfather work his connections at Washington, his alma mater, and yet nobody gave him the time of day. They all chose to focus on his lack of natural talent instead of his proven production and work ethic. Kupp even had the grades to get into any school that wanted him for their football team. As a 4.0 student, he actually wanted to go to Yale, but Kupp finished his high school career as a 0-star recruit without a single scholarship offer. He said, "It was tough. There's no feeling like that. I believed that I could play at the next level, but there's that voice in the back of your head saying, well, right now no one else thinks that you can, you know? But it didn't change my idea." It wasn't until 3 weeks after the final game of his senior season that he received his first scholarship offer to play for Eastern Washington, followed shortly thereafter by an offer from Idaho State. Both schools were members of the Football Championship Subdivision, better known as the FCS. Kupp ultimately decided to stay in his home state and attend Eastern Washington University. But he would have to wait to prove everyone who doubted him wrong, since he redshirted as a freshman at EWU. But that didn't mean Kupp couldn't get started on showing people he had way more potential than his recruiting profile alluded to. As a redshirt freshman, he was named EWU's Offensive Scout Team Player of the Year. But even after proving to his team and coaches that he belonged, Kupp was nearly forced to give up the sport he so dearly loved. Spending the following summer as a landscaper, Kupp struggled to balance his job with football workouts. By the time the season rolled around, he was so exhausted that he realized if he wanted to continue to pursue his goal of making the NFL, football had to become his full-time job. But at the same time, Kupp wanted to be financially secure if his plan didn't work out. He wrestled with what to do until his girlfriend Anna saved the day and changed Kupp's life. She stepped up to allow him to keep chasing his dreams. Along with being a student herself, she would support her and Kupp financially throughout the rest of their time in college. That way, Kupp didn't have to worry about money and could focus all of his time and energy on academics and football. This selfless sacrifice by Anna and total belief in him didn't go unnoticed or unappreciated by Kupp. He said, "There's no doubt in my mind, not only would I not be here where I am today without her or accomplishing the things that I would be doing, I really believe I may not be in this. I may not be in the NFL if it wasn't for her and what she inspired in me and pushed me to do." Now, with extra time and a chip on his shoulder, Kupp's redshirt freshman season at EWU was his chance to make a statement. He went out and broke the FCS all-time record for receptions, yards, and touchdowns by a freshman, with totals of 93 receptions, 1,691 yards, and 21 touchdowns. Kupp also set an FCS record with a touchdown catch in 14 straight games, on his way to being named a first-team All-American. It was his coming-out party, but he still wasn't finished. As an FCS player, Kupp knew he would have to do even more to get noticed by NFL teams, so he attacked that offseason with total commitment to the grind. As Bo Baldwin, Kupp's coach at EWU, put it, he didn't waste a minute, ever. I know a lot of people say it, but he truly wasn't going to let anyone outwork him. This was evident by all the success Kupp experienced over the next 3 seasons. As a junior, he won the Walter Payton Award, which is basically the FCS's version of the Heisman Trophy, and he was named a consensus FCS first-team All-American in 4 straight seasons. When it was all said and done, Kupp had set 15 FCS, 11 Big Sky, and 26 Eastern Washington records. He finished his collegiate career with 428 receptions for 6,464 yards and 73 touchdowns, scoring at least once in 43 of 52 games he played. Kupp had put together an essentially perfect resume at EWU, but ahead of the 2017 draft, he still wasn't viewed as a can't-miss prospect. Because he played in the FCS, there was a lower ceiling on his draft stock. His doubters pointed to the weaker competition as a reason for his video game-like college numbers. Teams used this as a justification to draft 6 wide receivers before Kupp and let him slide all the way to the Rams at the 69th pick.
The Los Angeles Rams select Cooper Kupp, receiver, Eastern Washington.
Despite feeling disrespected by being the 7th receiver off the board, the Kupps became the 5th family in league history to have 3 different generations selected in the draft. LA was also a fitting place for this underdog's next chapter to be written. Kupp was desperate to prove to the world that he had again been overlooked and undervalued. From the season opener, it was clear that the Rams liked what they saw from him in training camp and believed in him. It helped that in his NFL debut, he went out there and had 76 yards and a touchdown. As a rookie, Kupp played in 15 regular season games, finishing with 62 receptions for 869 yards and 5 touchdowns. As he was named to the all-rookie team by the Pro Football Writers Association, it was about as solid of a start that the Rams or Kupp could have asked for. Year 2 was supposed to be his chance to build off it and take the next leap forward in his development, but it wasn't. In a Week 6 game against the Broncos, Kupp suffered a knee injury and had to be carted off the field. Although he returned to the game, he ended up having to miss the next 2 games. After battling to get back into the lineup and having 5 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown, disaster struck during the following week against the Seahawks. During the 4th quarter, Kupp was running around and got tangled up with a Seahawks defender whilst trying to make his cut. He immediately went down in a heap of pain and was visibly distraught. An MRI later confirmed his worst fears. He had torn his ACL and his season was over. It was a brutal break for Kupp, who was in the midst of establishing himself as a bright young star. In 8 games played that year, he had 40 receptions for 566 yards and 6 touchdowns, meaning he was on pace to break the 1,000-yard barrier and score double-digit touchdowns. Without him, the Rams went on a run to the Super Bowl before ultimately falling to the Patriots. It killed Kupp not to be out there, so he spent all offseason grinding, trying to make it back in time for the 2019 season opener. He was motivated to finish what he had started and cement his place in the league. After intense rehabbing, Kupp was good to go by week 1 and determined to show he hadn't lost a step. During the first 7 games of the season, he had at least 100 yards in 4 games and scored 4 touchdowns. Then in week 8 against the Bengals, he exploded for 7 receptions, 220 yards, and a touchdown. Kupp was back and better than ever. He finished the year with 94 receptions for 1,161 yards and 10 touchdowns, which was tied for second best in the league. Kupp had established himself as the Rams' #1 receiving option. It was time for him to get paid.
Here's Cooper Kupp with 9 figures as well due over the next 5 years.
He signed a 3-year, $48 million extension with $35.1 million of it guaranteed. With a big new deal secured, it was no longer about just proving he belonged in the league. Now it was about Kupp proving that he was a superstar, and the 2020 campaign was his chance to do so. However, the season didn't go according to plan for Kupp. His numbers dipped in all 3 major categories as he failed to break 1,000 receiving yards and he only caught 3 touchdowns. On top of the decrease in production, Kupp suffered a knee injury in the Rams wildcard game that kept him out of their divisional round matchup loss. It was an all-around disappointing and frustrating season that no player wants to have after signing a high-paying contract. But it motivated Kupp to go even harder that offseason. He was no stranger to playing with a chip on his shoulder, even preferring to do so. Kupp entered the 2021 season as a man on a mission, and he also got some help from the Rams front office. In a blockbuster deal, LA traded Jared Goff and a package of high draft picks for Matthew Stafford.
Is this trade good or bad for the Rams?
I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's... Now, their decision-making is a bit questionable, and I understand that.
The Rams were now all in, betting on Kupp and Stafford to make magic with one another. And it didn't take long for Kupp to establish himself as Stafford's go-to target. In just the first 3 games of the season, he had 25 receptions for 367 yards and 5 touchdowns. And that hot start was no fluke, as Kupp went on to put together one of the greatest seasons by a receiver in league history. With 145 receptions for 1,947 yards and 16 touchdowns, he earned the receiving triple crown, becoming the first player since Steve Steve Smith in 2005 to lead the league in receptions, receiving touchdowns, and receiving yards. Kupp finished just 17 yards behind Calvin Johnson's NFL record for the most in a season, and only 4 receptions behind Michael Thomas's record. Having barely missed out on making history, Kupp was named the league's Offensive Player of the Year. Then, as the Rams made the playoff and the lights got brighter, Kupp's play somehow even got better. As LA went on a Super Bowl run, Kupp, over a 4-game stretch, had 33 receptions for 478 yards and 6 touchdowns. His receptions set a league record for a single postseason, while his receiving yards and touchdowns ranked second in league playoff history, behind Larry Fitzgerald. As the cherry on top of an already dreamlike season, Kupp caught the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl and was named the game's MVP. After being unstoppable for an entire regular season and postseason, it was time for another massive payday for Kupp. The Rams signed him to another 3-year extension, this time worth $80 million, with $75 million guaranteed. And as crazy as it may sound, the deal seemed like a bargain for the Rams, given how dominant Kupp's start to the 2022 season was. Having picked right up where he left off during the year before, Kupp looked and felt invincible. Nothing could stop him, except for another injury. In Week 10 against the Cardinals, Kupp suffered a high ankle sprain that required surgery and ended his season. Showing just how valuable he is to the team's success, the Rams' season was derailed after his injury.
Cooper Kupp suffered an injured ankle on Sunday. Bye-bye. High ankle sprain, had surgery.
At 5-12, the Rams finished with the worst record ever after having won the Super Bowl the year before. With Kupp expected to be ready for the 2023 season opener, the question becomes, can he find a way to return to form after yet another season-ending injury? And can he stay healthy? If so, the rest of the league better watch out.